On a hill above an Iranian desert city, there's a tower. It's empty now, but for centuries, bodies were carried up that hill and left on the open stone for the vultures to take. A few hundred kilometers north, an ordinary Iranian town hides 3 full levels of tunnels beneath its streets. Most residents had no idea it was there, until one man, digging beneath his own home, broke through into a chamber that had been sealed for centuries. And somewhere beneath modern Iran, right now, as you're watching this, the ground is sinking. Not in metaphor, not in slow geological time. Satellite data suggests that entire regions of the country are dropping more than 10 centimeters per year. In some places, more than 30. Roads split, houses crack, aquifers collapse beneath cities, and in many areas, they are not expected to recover. Iran is not terrifying because of legends. Iran is terrifying because of what's underneath. 7 places, 7 realities, and every one of them resists a clean explanation. The Iran you see on a map is the surface, but the surface here is rarely where the real story is. The most disturbing things in this country are not the things tourists photograph. They're the things underneath, under the desert, under ancient cities, inside mountains, inside abandoned rituals, and now, increasingly, inside the ground itself. Some of it is ancient. Some of it is happening right now. Science can describe most of what we're about to see. There are measurements. There are reports. There is satellite data, and there are peer-reviewed studies. But the explanations don't always settle the feeling. Some of these places are still being mapped. Some are still being studied. Some are still actively swallowing the world above them. They are not haunted in any cheap sense. They are something stranger. Places where the physical reality is more unsettling than any legend ever written about them. 7 of them, starting with the one that taught Iran how to handle its dead. Chapter 1. The Towers of Silence. 2 low hills rise outside the city of Yazd. On top of each, a circular stone wall. No roof, no door at ground level, no decoration. These are the Dakhmas, the Towers of Silence. And until the 1970s, when Iran finally outlawed the practice, this is where the Zoroastrian dead were brought. Not buried, not burned. The body was carried up a narrow path to the open platform at the top, then laid out on the bare stone in concentric rings. Men were placed in the outer circle, women in the middle, children in the innermost ring, and then the bearers left. The vultures came within hours. This wasn't horror, it was theology. In Zoroastrian belief, the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, air, are sacred and must never be polluted. A corpse, the moment life leaves it, is considered ritually impure. Burying it would defile the earth. Burning it would defile fire. So the only acceptable solution was to give the body to the sky. The vultures stripped the bones clean, often within hours. What remained, bleached, dry, weightless, was dropped into a central pit at the heart of the tower, where it dissolved into dust over time. Climb one of these hills today, and the silence is the first thing that registers. Not absence of sound, absence of purpose. The stone is still there. The pit at the center is still there. The lines marking where the bodies were placed are still there. The vultures are not. And that's where the story becomes more unsettling, not less. Because the ritual didn't end because people stopped believing in it. It ended because modernization caught up with it. Cities expanded toward the hills. Public health rules tightened. By the early 20th century, the practice was already in decline. By the 1970s, it was outlawed entirely. What's left is the architecture of a 3,000-year-old funerary system slowly being absorbed by the desert that once gave it purpose. The towers don't fall, they just empty. And the first thing this country teaches you is that the terrifying parts of Iran are not always violent. Sometimes they're just very, very quiet. The next one is quieter still. Chapter 2. The Lut Desert. There is a place in southeastern Iran where the ground has been measured hotter than anywhere else on Earth. Between 2003 and 2009, NASA satellites recorded surface temperatures in the Lut Desert above 70 degrees Celsius, over 159 Fahrenheit. For several of those years, the Lut held the title of the hottest measured surface on the planet. You cannot walk on it barefoot. You cannot survive a vehicle breakdown. But the heat isn't the strangest thing about the Lut. The shapes are. Long ridges of compacted earth and salt run across the desert in parallel lines, sculpted by wind into sharp vertical formations called coluts. Some rise more than 70 meters tall. They extend for kilometers in nearly perfect alignment. From the air, they don't look like geology. They look like ruins. Early satellite analysts reportedly had difficulty confirming they were natural at all. There are no rivers, no vegetation, no roads, no settlements for hundreds of kilometers in some directions. The wind, the heat, and time have removed almost everything else. And then there's the silence. Travelers who reach the center of the Lut describe a sound dropout that doesn't match any normal desert. Voices don't carry. Footsteps don't echo. Even the wind seems to lose its shape, sliding past the coluts and disappearing. Researchers believe the effect comes from the structure of the ridges themselves, long natural baffles that absorb and redirect sound waves. The explanation is plausible. Standing inside it, the explanation feels incomplete. And here's where the Lut becomes scientifically unsettling. Studies have detected microbial life inside this soil. Not abundant, not thriving, but present. Bacteria appearing to survive in conditions that should sterilize anything. If life can hold on here, in the hottest place we've ever measured, the implications travel outward fast. Astrobiologists study the Lut for the same reason they study certain Antarctic valleys. It's a test case for what survival looks like at the edge. But there's a darker reading. The Lut is not just an extreme environment. It is an environment that has been stripped of water, of vegetation, of sound, of human presence, of nearly every cue the human brain uses to feel oriented in space. And the planet, in places like the Lut, shows you what it looks like when the surface stops protecting you. The next place did the opposite. It hid. Chapter 3. Noushabad. The city beneath the city. In 2004, in a small Iranian town north of Qeshm, a man was digging a hole in his own house. He was working on a sewage line. He broke through the floor of his cellar into something he couldn't see. He lit a lamp and lowered it through the opening. He was looking down into the ceiling of an ancient room. That accidental discovery opened up one of the strangest archaeological sites in the modern Middle East. Beneath the town of Noushabad, beneath ordinary houses, shops, and streets, lies a hidden underground city. Archaeologists estimate it was built around 1,500 years ago, during the Sassanid era, and that it extends between roughly 3 and 18 meters below the surface. 3 levels, tunnels, chambers, stairways, ventilation shafts, wells, storage rooms, toilets, booby traps. This wasn't a cellar. It was an entire civilization built downward. The reasons were brutal. The region above ground was repeatedly invaded. Arab armies, Mongol raiders, and centuries of less famous violence. When attacks came, the people of Noushabad disappeared into the earth. And once they were inside, the design did the rest. The passages were narrow enough that intruders could only move single file, often crawling. Hatches between levels were so small that an armed soldier could not pass through them. The geometry of the place did the work of an army. Even the lighting was a weapon. When residents moved through the tunnels in groups, the first person reportedly lit each torch they passed. The last person extinguished it behind them. So if invaders ever did make it inside, they would chase voices through a labyrinth that lit and unlit itself as they advanced, never able to see who they were following or how far ahead the people had gone. This is not theoretical. This is engineering for hiding entire communities for days or weeks at a time. There were sleeping niches, water channels, air ducts disguised at the surface as ordinary household features. And here's the part that should give anyone pause. Only a fraction of Noushabad has been excavated. The tunnels are believed to extend further than the current surveys have mapped. Other Iranian cities, Qeshm itself, parts of Tabriz, sites near Hamadan, Shbrayo, where Kane Bain, Screen and Brian Naub, and show signs of similar underground networks, most still unmapped. Which raises a question no one in Iran can fully answer. How many of these cities are sitting on top of others? And how many people walked past the entrances every day for centuries without ever realizing the ground beneath them was hollow? Chapter 4. Hormuz. The island that bleeds off the southern coast of Iran, in the Persian Gulf, there is a small island where the ground itself is red. Not red in patches. Red across entire valleys, mountains, and beaches. The island is called Hormuz, and from above it looks injured. Hillsides drain into the sea in long crimson streaks, as if something has been bleeding into the water for centuries. The sand on certain beaches is so saturated with iron oxide that walking on it stains your skin. Locals collect a red soil here called jalak. They grind it. They use it as a spice. They mix it into bread. They paint with it. You can eat the ground on Hormuz. People have been doing it for generations. The geology beneath is even stranger. Hormuz sits on top of an active salt dome, a vast underground formation of salt that under pressure slowly rises upward through the rock above it, like a column pushing toward the surface. Salt caves run beneath sections of the island with crystalline ceilings and walls that catch light in ways that don't seem to match the desert outside. In one section, called the Rainbow Valley, bands of red, yellow, white, orange, and gray stretch across the hills in patterns so distinct they look painted. Each band marks a different mineral, deposited across different geological eras. More than 70 minerals are reported to have been identified in the island's soil. The scientific explanation is precise: iron oxidation, volcanic activity, salt diaparism, the slow upward migration of salt under pressure. The visual experience is something else entirely. Hormuz looks like the planet has been cut open and left exposed. Most of the Earth hides its chemistry under topsoil and vegetation. Here, the chemistry is the landscape. You can see the layers. You can walk across them. You can taste them. And there is no part of the island where this feels normal. The shoreline bleeds. The caves glow. The valleys change color depending on the angle of the sun. And while geologists have an explanation for every band, every mineral, every shimmering wall, none of those explanations remove the basic, irrational sensation of standing on something that looks like it was painted by an artist with no interest in concealing what it's made of. Hormuz is one of the few places on Earth where the planet refuses to pretend. Chapter 5. Damavand, the mountain holding something in. In Persian mythology, there's a tyrant named Zahak. He was so cruel, the legend says, that he could not be killed, only chained inside a mountain, alive until the end of time. The mountain in the story is real. It's called Damavand. Damavand is the highest peak in Iran and in the entire Middle East, reaching 5,610 meters. It is also a stratovolcano, currently classified as dormant. Its last eruption is estimated at several thousand years ago. But dormant in geology doesn't mean dead. It means waiting, and Damavand has not stopped breathing. The summit still releases sulfur gas. Yellow mineral crusts mark active fumaroles near the top. Climbers approaching the peak often report the smell first. Sharp, sulfurous, faintly metallic. The volcanic system underneath the mountain is still warm, still chemically active, still slowly venting heat from somewhere far below the visible rock. What climbers describe at the summit is harder to explain. A pressure in the air that doesn't match the wind. A low, sustained rumble with no clear source. Whistling sounds that some have interpreted as voices. Almost certainly the result of wind moving through fumarole vents and narrow rock channels, but unsettling all the same. And here is the scientific reality the legends were always closer to than they should have been. Damavand is a pressurized system. There is heat below it. There is gas. There is rock under stress. And no one, not the geologists who monitor it, not the seismologists who track its tremors, can say with any certainty when the system will shift again. Only that dormant does not mean gone. Persian poets writing more than 1,000 years ago imagined something monstrous chained inside the mountain. They had no instruments. They had no satellites. They had no way of knowing what the geology actually looked like. But they were right about the basic shape of the thing. Damavand is not just a mountain. It is a mountain holding something in. Chapter 6. The Valley of Stars. On the western edge of Qeshm Island, off the southern coast of Iran, there is a place locals are said to avoid at night. It is called the Valley of Stars, Dara Satareha. The landscape doesn't behave like rock. Spires of soft limestone and sandstone rise out of the ground in dense clusters, pillars, needle-shaped columns, cavities carved into vertical walls, dark, circular hollows that open straight into the stone, as if something has been removed from the inside. Mushroom-shaped formations balanced on impossibly thin stems. The whole valley looks excavated. Nothing excavated it. Geologists describe it as one of the strangest erosion sites in the Middle East. A thick lower layer of soft sediment sits beneath a thinner, harder cap of limestone-cemented rock. The soft layer erodes. The hard cap protects what's directly underneath it, and where the cap finally fails, the soft rock collapses inward, leaving these isolated towers, hollows, and voids standing alone in the dust. That's the science. The legend is older. The valley takes its name from a belief, passed down for generations on the island, that a star once fell here from the sky. That the formations are what's left of the impact. That the place is, in some way, not entirely terrestrial. And local communities have a more specific concern. When the wind moves through the valley after dark, the formations start to sound. Air currents pass across the carved hollows of the rock and produce low, sustained tones, whistles, moans, sounds that in the dark, with no visible source, are very difficult to ignore. Acoustic physics can describe the mechanism precisely. That description does not appear to be enough to convince anyone on Qeshm to spend the night here. The valley is widely believed by locals to belong after sunset to something that doesn't want company. The valley is silent during the day. It speaks at night. And not far from it, on the same island, a nearby formation called Shaku Canyon goes further. 100-meter deep gorge cuts straight into the earth. Vertical walls, cavities, wells dug into the canyon floor by locals over centuries to collect rainwater. Two perpendicular canyons crossing each other at right angles, both carved by the pressure of an underlying salt dome breaking through the rock above. Local tradition reportedly describes the canyon as the dwelling place of dark spirits. The walls of Chaku look like something has been pressing outward from inside the rock. The Valley of Stars looks like something has been pulled out of it. Either way, the experience is the same. You are standing in a place where the rock seems to be hiding something, and the explanations, however precise, never fully account for that feeling. There is one place left, the one that's still happening, the one that doesn't belong to legend at all. Chapter 7. The Ground That Is Sinking. In May 2024, a study was published in Science Advances that should have been front-page news around the world. It wasn't. Two researchers from Leibniz University in Germany used 6 years of radar satellite data to measure how much of Iran is currently sinking into the ground. The numbers were worse than anyone expected. Satellite data now suggests that tens of thousands of square kilometers across Iran are subsiding, roughly 3.5% of the country's entire land area. In some zones, the land is dropping by more than 10 centimeters per year. In the worst affected areas, the rate appears to exceed 30 centimeters annually. That's nearly a foot of vertical loss every 12 months beneath Iranian cities and farmland. It is happening right now. It happened while you were watching the earlier chapters of this video. The cause is not mysterious. For decades, Iranian agriculture and industry have pumped water out of underground aquifers faster than the aquifers could refill. The water table has collapsed. The empty space below the surface, the spaces where the water used to be, is now slowly being compressed by the weight of everything above it. And the deeper problem is this: aquifer collapse in most cases is permanent. Researchers estimate it could take hundreds, possibly thousands of years for the water resources to be naturally replenished. The pore space inside the rock, once collapsed, is not believed to reopen. Even if Iran restored every river tomorrow, the underground reservoirs would not come back. The visible effects are spreading. Cracks open across roads. Buildings tilt and split along foundations. Sinkholes appear without warning. In the northern city of Gorgan, a sinkhole reportedly opened in the street and swallowed 2 vehicles whole. And the threat is not limited to modern infrastructure. According to Iranian officials, ground subsidence is now affecting the country's most important historical sites. Isfahan's Nakshi Jahan Square, the ancient mosques surrounding it, and the archaeological complex at Persepolis and Nakshi Rostam. The same ground that has held up these monuments for over 2 millennia is beginning to give way. Persepolis. The Achaemenid tombs carved into the cliff face, sites that survived Alexander, the Mongols, centuries of weathering, now sitting on top of aquifers that are quietly collapsing beneath them. Tehran is sinking. Mashhad is sinking. Rafsanjan is sinking. Parts of Isfahan are sinking. More recent analyses suggest that the majority of Iran's land area is now drawing groundwater faster than nature can return it. This is not a story about ancient curses. It is a story about a modern civilization quietly engineering its own ground out from under itself. Slowly, invisibly, and in many places beyond reversal, and no one knows where it stops. Cities don't disappear in a day when the ground beneath them gives way. They disappear over decades, through through cracks, through condemned buildings, through neighborhoods that quietly empty out and never recover. Iran appears to be in the early stages of that process. The satellites are watching, the reports are written, the science is published, and the ground keeps dropping. 7 places. An empty stone tower where the dead were given to the sky. A desert so hot the surface temperatures broke every record on Earth and stripped the landscape of almost every cue that life leaves behind. A city no one knew about, hidden 3 levels beneath an ordinary town, only found because someone happened to dig in the right place. An island that looks injured because its chemistry has nothing left to hide behind. A mountain that legends called a prison, that geologists still classify as active, and that nobody can fully predict. A valley that speaks at night, carved by physics no one disputes, into a shape no one entirely understands. And underneath all of it, the slow, satellite-confirmed reality that the ground itself is collapsing, region by region, faster than the country can adapt to. These are not curses, they are not paranormal, they are not myth. They are the consequences of geography, of geology, of ritual, of time, and with Walken, in the final case, of how a modern nation has been using its land. Most of what frightens us about other places comes from things we can see. The most frightening parts of Iran come from things we usually can't. You can study them, you can measure them, you can map them, you can publish papers about them. You can never fully look away from them. Because in Iran, the surface is never the whole story.